Sean Pickett with Sales Integrity here. Thank you for listening to the Sales Integrity Podcast. I created a free course for you titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling. To claim your free course, just visit mastercomplexselling.com. Again, that's mastercomplexselling.com, or simply text the word SI course to the number 44222. Again, that's SI as in Sales Integrity. So SI course, all one word with no space in between SI and course. Otherwise, you'll get an error message back. So simply text the word SI course to the number 44222. Now let's jump into the podcast. Now let's chat with today's guest, Debbie Mrazek. Debbie, are you ready to share some wisdom with Sales Integrity Nation today?
I am. Hello. Ready for some happy selling today.
Awesome. Real excited to have you on the show. So Debbie Mrazek is Mrazek. I said Mrazek, and I told you I wasn't going to do that. Debbie Mrazek is founder and president of The Sales Company, a firm that is helping hundreds of entrepreneurs, individuals, and large corporations better assess, understand, and engage in practical, purposeful selling, which I love to hear that. We're going to hear more about that. I've known Debbie personally for years now, and anybody who knows Debbie knows about her Mrazek Energy, as she is one of the most well-respected and enthusiastic sales coaches, consultants, trainers, and keynote speakers you're ever going to meet. However, Debbie, nobody, and I mean nobody, can introduce you better than you. So given that, take a moment to say hello, fill in the blanks from what I just introduced you as, and tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know how you best serve the sales profession as a sales industry leader.
Sean, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm delighted to be here. Yes, I love all things sales. I started my career at Texas Instruments selling semiconductors and printed circuit boards and those kind of things, and really grew up in the business, from the beginning, customer service, inside sales, outside sales. And as I went along, because I focused on the technology business at that time, one of the things I was seeing is people very brilliant about what they invented, but they could not sell. They couldn't do business development. So I formed the sales company to work with technology companies, helping them be able to sell and, continue to do the brilliant things they were doing. What's evolved over the last 20 years now is working with every kind of industry. And it has just been fascinating how some industries do things differently, but how we can take best practices for one and utilize them in the other. It's just been great. To me, sales is like a sport, and I love helping my clients be able to win.
That is outstanding. Great. Well, as you know, I've named my company and the podcast after Sales Integrity. So I always like to start with this as the first question, Debbie, which is this: how do you define sales integrity, or what it means for a sales professional to demonstrate integrity while selling?
I'm laughing because I always say, do not lie.
Yep.
It will always come back to bite you. There's no fancy, there's no catchy, there's no anything. I believe, in our profession, we all know the stereotypes that some people have and all, but the truth is most of those have been, whether it was, they intended to lie or they just left out some things. You know, it's just sales integrity to me is being honest no matter what.
Yep, that's great. Now, at Sales Integrity, we have a mantra that we repeatedly teach the sales professionals we coach, which is this: make your sales pop to achieve your goals. Now, Debbie, POP is naturally an acronym and stands for preparation, organization, and productivity. And we found these to be the key habits of all top sales achievers that we've worked with. So given that, my next 3 questions will address these 3 habits to get your take on each one. You ready?
All right.
Great. Question number 1. What is one scenario a sales professional should always be prepared for while interacting with prospects?
Well, I think they should always be prepared to be themselves. to be authentic. They don't need to be anybody else, anything else. If they don't know something, say it. And if they do, elaborate. But, being prepared as you go in isn't only about being prepared, knowing the client, knowing what you really have to sell, what their needs are, but also being prepared to be the best you can be. I think salespeople, just by virtue of sales training, many people have had that kind of training, but I think preparing yourself always, and that you keep learning and, learning how to be the best person you can be. I think authenticity.
I think that's great. Authenticity. That is outstanding advice, because obviously we focus on preparation quite a bit, and there is something called over preparing, right? And if you go in rigid and over prepared, you're not going to come across as authentic as you should be and as you are probably. Right.
Well, when I started my career, I was actually in Houston in the seismic industry doing outside sales. And, I was afraid to be me. There weren't, many women in that business, and I wanted to be taken as serious. And so, I'd be so prepared and know my products and all. But, I was being like a robot. I really was not being me. And it wasn't until somebody pointed that out to me that then my sales really began to take off.
That's great. That's great advice. So add some personality, authenticity to your preparation. Make sure you're competent, but also be you.
Yes.
That's great. Okay. Question number 2, what technology or tool would you recommend to help a sales professional become more organized?
The one thing I always say with that is have a sales forecast. And I'm talking about a sales forecast that you look at every day, something that's a living document, not the thing you look at the week between Christmas and New Year's and decide what you're going to do for the upcoming year. Because I believe in using that can drive your time and your calendar. So, if you think about a generic forecast, suspects, prospects, hard leads, proposals, customers, if you started every day about looking at your customers, does anybody need anything changing, need to follow up, do that, put that in your time funnel first, then looking at your proposals, what do I need to do to move this along, hard leads, how can I get those to proposals, and then, I need to generate new prospects, new suspects. I think that is the best way to organize your sales life.
That's great. Very sound advice. Question number 3, how can a sales professional improve productivity to get more done in less time?
So I have an exercise that I have clients do when I start with them. It's called 168 hours. What are you doing with yours? Oftentimes I'm hired by the CEO or president of the company, and the person they're hiring me to help doesn't necessarily think they have time for me. So I like to meet people where they're at. So I give them this exercise, and for a week, they go through and, keep up with their time and what they really do with it. And I'll use my first example when I did this exercise. I got to the end of a week and realized I had spent 7 hours that week literally doing administrative things that I could have paid somebody $10 an hour to do. And so I think in order for people to maximize their productivity, they need to figure out where they are today, what they are really doing with their time. And then, those kind of things, I feel like I'm worth a whole lot more than $10 an hour. So find somebody you can delegate to and have them do those things. And it can be all kinds of things. You just think, I don't need to spend time filing, I can get somebody to do that. And so I think that's really the key. But I believe that you really need to know what you're doing with your time first before you can change it. So I always tell people with this exercise, don't do it with anybody. Your business partner, your boss, your wife, your best friend, nobody. Tell the truth. And one of the funny things that I've discovered over 20 years of doing this, do you know what the average amount of time is that people watch TV each week?
No. I don't.
35 hours.
Wow.
So if you say that you get to the end of the week, there's something that hasn't gotten done, hasn't been done. Oh, I didn't get to it. I mean, you don't need somebody to tell you, well, if you weren't spending 35 hours a week watching TV, you might have had an hour to get that done. You don't need that. You need to be able to see it for yourself and hold yourself accountable.
Yeah. Wow, 35 hours of TV per week on average. Unless it's football season, Debbie, I'm not
Yeah.
even averaging that per month.
Well, it's the old deal, too, where, time is lost in minutes, not in hours.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, well, I'm just going to watch for a few minutes. I'm doing this. But when you really keep track of it and add up, maybe it was only 15 minutes here, or 20 minutes there, or half hour there, it adds up.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Wow. Yeah, that is outstanding. The time, what we do is have people time block and really document everything. Where's all your time going? If you do an exercise like you're talking about for a week and see where all your time goes, you'll realize where all the hidden pockets of available time that you can grab back by either delegating or deleting it off your responsibility list, right?
Right. And one of the things, of course, it is none of my business, what people do after 5. And I always tell them that with this exercise. But what I have found is, when people are really being tough on themselves about not getting things done, oftentimes there's things that are impacting that from their personal life.
Yeah.
And if they can see that in their personal life for themselves, they don't need to divulge it to me. But, then again, they can course correct from that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, documenting that and really examining all aspects of where your time goes, not just professional, but personal, is hugely important. And you are going to bring, what I found, you are going to bring your personal life into your business life, right? So it is affecting it. So it's something that you shouldn't ignore, kind of put your head in the sand on.
Well, Zig Ziglar always talked about, we weren't one person 8 to 5 and another person after
right.
5. And if we thought we were, we needed to look at that we are truly one person. So to look at it all in total, I think really makes sense to be that person that you want to be.
Yeah. I agree. That's outstanding. Well, let's shift and talk a little bit about your book. Debbie is the author of a book called The Field Guide to Sales, the All-Weather, All-Terrain Guide to Selling. This is an excellent book with just jam-packed with tons of great actionable insights and useful advice from Debbie. So can you tell us a little bit about this and just maybe highlight a lesson or two that you think is really pertinent for our audience here?
You bet. I wrote The Field Guide to Sales not as a book to be read cover to cover. Think about if you have a journal of your sales career and today was the last day of your career, you were retiring. Imagine if you had this journal of all your lessons learned and, good ones, bad ones, that kind of thing that you could hand to the next person taking over for you. So the book is designed 12 chapters, very specific. The first one, I alluded to it before, the sales forecast, I think is just critical. And, like if you only read that chapter, you could, do, if you can't afford to hire me and pay $20 for the book, you could improve your business. So I wanted it to be a book where the index was the most used page. You're going to call on somebody today. You felt like there was going to be an issue with closing, go to the index, look up closing and go to that page and just read that part that you need today.
Yeah, that's great.
And I laugh because people call me and they go, oh my gosh, Deb, I went in this meeting today and on page 92 where you said, it's like, I don't always remember what's on what page.
That's right.
But it's been a great experience. And also I've used the book not only, for individuals to be able to do it themselves, but also over the years, I've realized the book is like, used to, we always had a brochure, something we'd leave behind for our business to tell people about our business and ourselves. And I have found, the book is a wonderful way to introduce myself and my philosophy and how I think, and, people get it.
That's outstanding. That is great. Thanks for sharing that. Also, part of your business, when you go in and work with companies and their sales teams, you very often, or probably all the time now, start off with assessing the sales team and the individual members. So can you talk a little bit about the sales assessment side of your business, kind of what you're doing there and why it's important, whether a company works with you or does something on their own? What's the importance of assessing their sales professionals? And then you provided one example before we were recording as we were prepping for the interview here. about one company you went and worked with between, it helps you really kind of determine and identify hunters versus closers. So if you could talk a little bit about the importance of assessing sales professionals, why sales professionals would want to be assessed, and a little bit of that anecdote, that story, that'd be great.
You bet. So oftentimes with sales, it's emotional, it's intuitive, it's feeling. And what I have found using assessment tools is being able to set, a basis for your behavior and really understanding objectively what it is. So I use a tool called Lumina Sales. Lumina is out of London, but they are a global company. And oftentimes today, my clients are global as well. So the assessment, whether I'm working with just one person, that one person doing an assessment with them helps me understand them and them sometimes to be able to better articulate themselves by doing that before we begin to make our time the most valuable. And then with the team, having everybody use it, it's like it creates a language amongst them that is objective, that we can say, oh, well, I can see now I'm more of this than that. And so the example I was sharing is about a team that when they did this, we got this all done before we started working together, and they realized, this assessment tool, like if it was on one plane and the sales pipeline was on another plane, they were on top of each other, then what this showed was they had 5 hunters and no closers. And it was like, it wasn't intended to be that way. It just is how they hired. It's what happened. But, when we know better, we can do better. So either, we help the hunters be able to close, or we hire closers, but it allows us information that we can work with objectively to make our team be the best they can be. And then this springboards what we do with them. And I believe, really saves a lot of time instead of trying to get to know each individual. And I'm sure your business is like mine these days. A lot of time it's on the phone. You never meet these people. You don't see them. So you're missing that aspect. So doing this assessment to set a baseline, then to be able to get to know them more quickly and to work together more effectively quickly, I think is a great tool.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that story about the hunters and closers. So essentially this company had people that were good at going out and connecting with target market prospects, generating leads, getting them at least qualified on the front end and managing them through the sales pipeline. However, they just weren't, their closing ratios weren't where they needed to be. And through your assessment, you found out that maybe their skills were a little bit deficient there.
Absolutely.
That is great. So as a sales professional out there in our audience, it's important that you do get assessed, because sometimes we're so in the weeds, we think, hey, we're really good at this particular component of the business, and then maybe an assessment will tell you otherwise. So I found by conducting assessments like this, yes, it allows us to connect better with our coaching clients, right? It's a great first discussion because it's all about them and what we could do to put a personal sales coaching roadmap together. But more importantly, it's either a wake-up call or it's something that highlights some strengths that they can further leverage to help them succeed more. So it really kind of gives them a well-rounded 365-degree view. And it sounds like, Debbie, what you've gone through, you go through this with your customers all the time. So the takeaway here is that whether they work with you or someone else or just do it internally, they need to leverage an assessment. It's a good thing for sales professionals, good thing for sales teams, sales leaders to conduct as well, right?
Absolutely. And management, so oftentimes has not done these sort of things with their team, and they're just stunned about how it can help them move forward so much more quickly.
Yep. Great. Well, let's shift gears here a bit. I'm writing copious notes as you're talking. We could always be learning. I'm learning from you, which is great. So one of the quotes I like that you already said in this interview is "Time is lost in minutes, not in hours." I think that's outstanding that you brought that up. So nowhere can you get lost up in minutes than in this new rage of social selling, the social selling, right? Whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or otherwise. But so we're going to shift gears and talk social selling, as that's a very hot topic, as you know, these days. The use of social technologies, Debbie, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and others, has really taken the selling scene by storm, as you know. Given that, what is one social selling tip or technique that you would recommend to what our audience is, which is mainly B2B sales professionals, to either establish credibility or generate more leads, or maybe something else that you think that would be useful for that audience? But, how can they leverage social selling? Do you have any tips or techniques here? Have you made sense of social selling yet?
Well, I'm not sure I've made complete sense of it, but I think I'm better than I was when I began. In fact, one of the, if you're not on all three of these, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, one of the best pieces of advice I felt like I ever got was don't try to master them all at once. Just pick one and do that, and then add another. And so that's what I've done over time. And the way that I think, in this day and time, establishing credibility is, first of all, that you're on there. Like we were talking just a moment ago about like how we used to have brochures and then we had websites. And if you didn't have a brochure, you didn't have a website, then are you really a business? Well, now it's this way on social media. Do you have a LinkedIn profile? How thorough is it? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? Or maybe Instagram or Pinterest is good for your business, whatever it is. But are you there? Can people find you? It doesn't need to be perfect. If you don't have it perfect, don't worry about it, but have something. But I think having a presence there, I know you write articles, Sean. I write articles, I publish them there. I share articles, on my area of expertise of other people. I don't believe I can know everything, but I believe my audience, my clients, the people that are, following me are people that would care as much about what you're thinking as I'm thinking. So I share other people's work. I get involved in discussion just like this. We're doing this podcast today and we're going to put it out there on social media. And so people are going to hear both of us. They're going to take away something, it's great. I do recommendations for other things that I know about. Like, you're talking about social selling and, what a time drain that can be. One of the things that I recommend to people, there's an app called rescuetime.com, and Rescue Time will follow your computer, for whatever amount of time, like I was talking about earlier, 168 hours. And at the end of the week, it'll tell you exactly how much time did you spend on Facebook? How much time were you in Word? How much time were you on LinkedIn? How much time were you in your accounting package? And, you can know yourself exactly how much time you're spending there. And, the other thing is what people find sometimes with social selling is they're not spending enough time with it. They're not leveraging it, by doing these kind of things, being involved in discussions and writing articles and sharing content. And, the other thing about social media is, yes, I connect to other colleagues who do what I do, just like you, and we share that expertise. But I'm also very targeted about connecting with the audience of who I'm going to sell with. So people that are VPs of sales or presidents of small companies, I link into those groups, those discussions too, and offer expertise there. And the other thing I think about social media and generating more leads is sometimes what I find with people, and there's always a fine line between selling or spamming, but I also think, there is a way to ask for what you want. Example of if there is a particular title in a company that you need to talk to for your business. Like I had somebody last week, who are the chief revenue officers that you know? Well, so I just went through my database real quick, looked up that title and sent it to them. I didn't make an introduction in these cases. I didn't do anything more, but it was somebody that I trusted, somebody that I know, somebody that I had relationship. They were very specific in their ask, and it made it very easy for me to deliver. So I think on social media, we ought to use it more often to ask for what we want.
That is great. So there was a lot of great advice jam-packed in there. I'm going to try and unpack this real quick here. So the first thing is, share articles. If you're not going to author them, you can curate content and share other. So if you're not going to create the content, you feel like that's daunting. Debbie talks about starting somewhere. So start with doing some research, finding other articles that are written that on your particular topic that resonates with your point of view, and then share that, right? You're still going to get the credit for sharing it. You're going to be someone who's known as well-researched and versed in your niche. So that's a great piece of advice there, Debbie. Also, the tool you talked about, rescuetime.com. So rescuetime.com, for those of you that didn't write it down the first time, I suggest you do. It'll help track your time spent for a week, it sounds like, Debbie, right? Time spent on the internet, what sites, what applications like Word and all that stuff. So really helps you focus on your productivity as you're examining that, which is great. And then I'll end it, again, I'm taking notes on what you're saying, Debbie. I'll end it with a great quote that you had, which is ask for what you want. I think with social media, and you can kind of weigh in here as well, a lot of people think that I'm just going to kind of put things out and sit back and things are going to come to me, right? And I think it's another tool that you still can, as long as you're adding value, you still got to be aggressive in your outbound efforts, not pushy, not just solely self-serving, right? You got to make sure it's the same thing you would do if you were with someone live or reaching out to them on the phone. So you got to be respectful and professionally persistent. But at the end of the day, sales is about asking, right? And helping people and asking. From your end, you got to ask people for what you want if you're ever going to get to a chance to be able to help them, right?
Absolutely. And I think, it's one of the hardest things and one of the easiest things.
Yep. Exactly right. Well, let's shift gears from social selling. If social selling is all the rage these days, then its chief rival that I found is equally polarizing is the tactic of cold calling. So let me ask you, Debbie, is cold calling dead? And if not, where do you believe cold calling fits into the lead generation mix these days?
This is such a great question. So for my business, for the most part, coaching and consulting, I have developed my network over years. So almost 98.9% of my business comes from referrals.
Mm-hmm.
It took many years for that to happen. So I don't do a lot of cold calling, but I have clients in different industries that this still makes sense. But before I explain that, I really want to say that I think today, cold calling and social selling should work together.
Mm-hmm.
So in the past, we did cold calling, and that truly was calling in cold. You didn't know anything. You really didn't know about the company, the size, any of those kind of things. Well, in this day and time, whoever you're calling, if you go online and Google them, LinkedIn, whatever, you can probably find out something about them before you call. So I don't think cold calling and social selling are, separate. I think they should be using them together. And there are particular industries that I believe cold calling is still a very important part of their lead generation, their marketing mix. So you find it, with people who offer, like insurance or vending services or heat and air conditioning, accounting, cleaning services, things that every company uses. And those kind of companies are still using cold calling to call on, companies in a particular zip code, a territory, that kind of thing, where salespeople are looking to grow that. So I don't think cold calling is dead.
That's great. So I love you say cold calling and social selling go hand in hand. And I could not agree more with you on that point. It's interesting. Everyone talks about that they're smarter buyers these days. And I don't think they're any smarter than they were. They're just more informed, right? Because of the internet and access to the information that they have. But I like to kind of half joking, half serious say that the internet works both ways. Right? They can research you, but you should be researching them as a sales professional. Do your homework. So that way, when you are cold calling, it's not really calling, you're outbound calling, and you're just more informed as well. So you're going to add more value in that conversation. When you open up, it's going to be more targeted. It's going to be relevant for them and timely, something that they would be interested in. So I think it's kind of the old adage of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right, that old saying where
absolutely
cold calling, they're throwing the phone out with the cold calling terminology, but the phone is still a useful tool, right?
You still have to talk to people. And, people do talk a lot about smarter buyers, but the truth is, yes, the buyers may be smarter, more well-informed, but so are the salespeople. And if they're not, shame on them, because there's no reason for them not to be.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right, Debbie, we are nearing the end of our time together today. So that means one thing, it's time for the sales cycle. The sales cycle is not only a process that all sales professionals have to manage, but it's also the name of our lightning round, where I ask questions in rapid fire format and look for quick answers from our guests. So, Debbie, to make this fun, I will time it to see how fast you can get through the sales cycle. And then each future guest will see if they can achieve the top spot for getting through the sales cycle in the least amount of time. Obviously, that's something that all sales professionals would like to achieve, a shorter sales cycle, right?
Absolutely.
So currently, one of our previous guests, who I believe you know, Jim Fortin, set the benchmark with a 2-minute and 11-second sales cycle. So that's the time to beat. Yeah, no pressure. That's the time to beat. And he actually cut it in half. I think the time before him, Jeff Bishop was the one who held it before him, and he was like at 4 minutes something. So Jim was very, very efficient. But do you think you could beat him?
Let's give it a try.
Yeah, well, we just like to have fun with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Keep one thing in mind.
And sales should be fun.
That's right. I agree. So keep one thing in mind. We do want to balance speed with value. So if I feel your answers are too quick, I might ask you to elaborate just a bit so our audience can get some valuable takeaways. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let me get my trusty little timer here. Given that, Debbie, are you ready to start the sales cycle?
I am.
All right, we're going to go through 7 questions, and we'll go through them in rapid fire format, and I look forward to your answers. So I'm going to start the timer right now. Question number 1, name a specific technology or tool you use for identifying and researching target market prospects.
I use LinkedIn, and I'm also exploring LinkedIn Sales Navigator now to use LinkedIn even more effectively.
Okay, great. Question number 2. What is the best method to initially get the attention of and connect with your target market prospects?
To ask for referrals. You know, each of us, I teach something called the Rule of 250. Each of us know at least 250 people. And if you actually have got your target market down, you should be asking everybody you know if they know them, so you can talk to them one-on-one versus trying to get to them in a myriad of other ways.
Great. Rule of 250, leverage your network. I love it. Question number 3, what method do you use to consistently stay top of mind if your prospects aren't ready to buy just yet?
I have everyone in my database, and I have a system I use for sending emails to keep in touch, or phone calls. One of the other powerful things I do is I invite them to events and things that I'm attending that I think they might be interested in, so I can spend time with them even though we may not be doing business with one another yet.
That's a great tip. Inviting to events. That's awesome. Question number 4, what sales process methodology do you use to manage opportunities through the sales cycle?
You know, I struggled with this for years, and people would ask me what my methodology was. And I was at a luncheon with people I didn't know, and I said this out loud, and the guy went, "Well, you do have it. It's the Mrazek methodology." So I've laughed ever since because, you know, we know how to use various different ones. But mine really is what I talked about earlier, is my methodology is all around that sales forecast.
Great. Question number 5, how do you define the concept of closing a sale?
Getting the order. You know, that is the only way you close a sale. You have to walk away with the order.
Yeah. Question 6, how do you know when it's time to close a sale for any given opportunity?
When all the objections have been met, you know, you've been asking all the open-ended questions, who, what, where, why, when, and how, and you've addressed everything, then it shouldn't even really be about having to ask for the order so much as they're saying, well, I guess there's nothing else. Let's get started. Great.
Last question. What is your best advice for sales achievers to improve their closing ratio?
To ask for the order. You know, so oftentimes we salespeople, we talk and talk and talk, and we just don't ask for the order. And I had a situation when I was young. I was one of those that could talk all around it but didn't ask. And then one day the buyer had already told me that I didn't get it. And as I was getting up to leave, I just kind of turned around to him and laughed and said, "But can I have the order anyway?" He laughed. And it was like, it just took away all the attention, or tension rather. And after that, it was just like, you know, what does it hurt to ask for the order, even if they say no, or if, you know, you haven't asked for it yet, you might be surprised. And that gentleman, I ended up doing tens of millions of dollars with.
Excellent. All right. I just stopped the clock. Congratulations. You closed the deal. You've completed the sales cycle, and your time was 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
Well, Jim holds the record. I'll be the silver medalist.
You are the silver medalist. That's right. That's right. That is outstanding. So, Debbie, let's wrap up the show with your number one piece of advice for complex technical B2B sellers. That's our primary audience for the podcast. So your number one piece of advice for those that are selling complex technical products, services, and solutions, and then also how can people best connect with you?
So my number one piece of advice is really spend time researching. Get as much information as you can, find out other people already working in the space or with the client that you want. What I find out is in today's day and time, people are still going out there so oftentimes blind. They've not done much research, if any. And we have all of this available to us now. So to do as much as you can up front, just, like you feel like when you're walking in, like this is somebody maybe you already know in some way. I think is one of the most powerful things you can do. And then to focus on, all parts, from beginning to end. Like we laughed about hunters and closers, but, if you're responsible for the whole process, then you've got to keep your focus on the whole thing. You can't skip different parts.
Yeah. And how can people best connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is on my website, www.the-sales-company.com.
Great. And can they access all your social profiles and all that stuff from the website?
You bet. LinkedIn,
Awesome.
Facebook, Twitter, all of those.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for your time today, Debbie, and thank you to all the sales achievers out there who took the time to listen to today's interview. I appreciate it and look forward to everyone applying some of the sales wisdom ideas that Debbie provided during today's interview. Now, let's wrap up today's episode with a few quick reminders. First, we recently launched 2 new B2B tech sales professional groups, one on LinkedIn and one on Facebook. Just search for B2B tech sales professionals on either LinkedIn or Facebook, or both if you want to join both groups, and join the conversation with your peers there. Second, if you haven't already subscribed to our free 7-day video email course titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling, then you can do so by visiting mastercomplexselling.com. Again, that's mastercomplexselling.com, or you can text the word SI course, so as in sales integrity, SI course, all one word with no spacing in between. If you send it with a space between SI and course, you'll receive an error message back. So text the word SI course to the number 44222. After subscribing, we will send you your first lesson via email right away on day 1, and then one for the next 6 days. Third, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or SoundCloud. Just search for the Sales Integrity Podcast with Sean Pickett, and it should pop up and allow you to subscribe on one of those 2 channels. After you subscribe, please provide a quick 5-star rating and simple 1 to 2 sentence review to help others find the show. To provide a review on iTunes isn't as simple as you think. You can't do so directly within the podcast. What you have to do is actually click on the search icon, then type in Sales Integrity, and you will see my podcast there. Now, I'm referring to the purple podcast icon. When you click on that on your iPhone, brings up the main podcast center. Down below, you'll see the search icon. So click on that, type in Sales Integrity, and you'll see the podcast there. Click on the podcast. In it, you'll see the reviews tab in the middle there. Just click on that. And once there, you could provide a 5-star rating and simple 1 or 2 sentence review. Now, since iTunes prioritizes shows with the most ratings and reviews higher than those that have just a few of them, this will dramatically help the show be found by more people. So I greatly appreciate it. And finally, please share the podcast with your colleagues and friends who would find it relevant. You can do so by going to salesintegrity.com and click on the Sales Integrity Podcast menu link at the top of the page. All of the podcasts are there, and it provides you a way to click a button and share any episode, whether via email directly to individuals, or there's buttons there to share it on the various social media sites, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So I would greatly appreciate it if you spread the word about the show on social media to help grow it. And finally, that'll do it for today's episode. Now go out there in the sales world today and help your prospects and customers buy what they want, what they need, in what benefits them, and most importantly, go out there and make it a great day.